what do you want to start with on Stadium? Because I have random questions I'm going to give you, but like, do you have anything particular you want to start off with Stadium?
Oh wow,
Mm-hmm.
like I was expecting some
Mm-hmm.
questions, but I think that like maybe the biggest thing is we've been like pretty excited to see like the how the fan base has responded to it so far. Like we have a lot of people playing Stadium. Yeah, we're kind of like going full speed ahead on this thing. I think we're probably even going to do another balance patch next week
Ooh,
also.
that's gonna be interesting because obviously I play one of the heroes that seems to be struggling a little bit, but I'm also curious on that one because that's a good segue. Thank you for that. So I'm curious first of all with data. Who is the highest win rate hero right now in Stadium?
Okay, so this really depends
Uh huh.
on whether we're talking about, I'm going to move some, now on my side, I'm going to start moving some stuff around so
Yeah,
I
do
can
your
like
thing. Listen, this is
see this and see all the charts and stuff like that too. So
yeah.
if we're just talking win rates, it really diverges in Stadium, whether we're talking about like Masters Plus lobbies
Mm-hmm.
or lobbies beneath that.
Okay.
So if we're just talking about like a standard lobby, like or like if we're gonna do like the average of all of them,
Mm-hmm.
then it's Lucio's got the highest win rate. He
Okay.
doesn't have that high of a pick rate, but he's kind of like up there at the top. Um, but things get really interesting, and then that's on the support side. If you want to talk about like tanks,
Mm-hmm.
it's Ryan. Ryan's
Yeah.
got the highest win rate, and then Reaper's got the highest win rate for the damage roll. As soon as you go into, let's say, like a Masters Plus lobby, like everything changes.
Okay.
And it depends now on whether you're talking about console or whether you're talking about like PC only, or whether it's going from like a controller to a mouse and keyboard lobby. Um, because that like really changes it too. So Masters Plus, if you're talking tank, it's Junker Queen.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking controller, it's Diva by a million miles.
Wait,
She is
really?
like so high up there. Yeah, it's like it's actually pretty crazy where she's at. Um,
That's
and
so
so like
wow.
yeah,
I'm just interested to hear that because like obviously Diva like you obviously you've seen the discourse on Diva. Diva's been like struggling, so I'm just now it makes a bit more sense though why it's taking a little bit of time to figure out Diva because obviously if on console you have Diva dominate and that becomes a problem if okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, the console stats are like really
Mm-hmm.
interesting to look at on this. And then I think if we're talking about like where were we Masters Plus,
Yep.
just on the average between like like console and PC, May's actually at the top. She's not like way above everybody else, and it's still Lucio at the top for for the support role.
Wow, it's cool knowing data. See, that's why I love knowing data. I'm excited if we ever get to a world where we see data more consistently because like I people there'll be a blog post with one set of data. We're like that's data. That is data right there, and I'm excited. It's like
Yes, right.
it's like speaking of that. Actually, I'm curious now. Did you expect to see as much people playing Stadium with those amount of hours when you did Stadium?
No. Um, so like when we were first like creating this game mode, it was
Mm-hmm.
a long time ago. And sorry if I'm speaking over you a little bit. I'm getting a little bit of like some audio issues here, so hopefully I'm not doing too much of that.
I will
But
talk
yeah,
over you too, so don't worry. You're fine. You're good.
okay, good. Um, yeah, so when we first started working on this mode, we're like, hey, we want to have like another way to play Overwatch in the game, and we kind of like we were trying to solve some problems with Overwatch, and we were trying to provide like new opportunities in the game. And we wanted there to be a space that felt like it was totally separate from quick play and ranked, like the core modes for people to be able to go and play in. But we thought like, hey, maybe this will be like somewhere between 10 and 20% of play hours in the
Oh.
game, and like that was kind of like the goal with the mode, was to set up something like that, because a little bit more data, the two top played modes are just our regular roll queued ranked and unranked modes,
Mhm.
and then they kind of go back and forth, like as far as like play hours in them, depending on what's going on. When there's drives are out, ranked is above, like the unranked mode, but sometimes they're kind of like going back and forth. um and then what used to be our third most played mode was our unranked open queue, and that
Hmm.
kind of like always hovered around maybe like 8 to 10% of play hours. But when Stadium launched, it like kind of exploded, and was quickly went at like over 50% of like all play hours in the game. It was crazy. It's going down right now, which is
Hmm.
kind of typically what happens to a lot of our limited time, like events that some of them can start big. None have ever started kind of close to this. And then they'll like really quickly drop off, to where they'll get to the point where, it might be like something at 20% of play hours might go down to like 2% of play hours over a few weeks.
Hmm.
So Stadium is dropping a bit, but it's still really high. It's like in the 30s or 40, like upper 30s, low 40s or something, depending on the day. And then the big question is like, where does this thing level out for us?
Yeah, that still seems really good after a couple weeks, right? Like, or close to it.
Yeah.
Like, to be at
Yep.
that percentage, like that's really good.
I think ideally, like, like it's not like we get to decide these things, right? It's kind of like it's the way that players respond to it. But ideally, it would kind of be like I would hope that like the quick play and competitive modes in this were kind of like roughly equal. It
Hmm.
feels like it would be sort of like best for queue times, best for a lot of different parts of the game. But at the same time, if like players, like kind of like prefer this, that's fine. We'll keep making stuff for Stadium, and we'll keep making stuff for the regular game regardless.
Well, that's the exciting part because I feel like if I have a bad day of ranked, I can go and play some Stadium. If I have a bad day of Stadium, I can go play some ranked because I love Overwatch. Obviously, like I mean, there's no hiding that. I've been playing it for years, so it's like, and I'm biased, so like I love having that option. And it's even on the roadmap, it was cool to see that like you have like a legitimate roadmap for Stadium. It's not like it's you introduce a mode and go, hey, here it is, have a little bit of fun. But like you have like a legitimate roadmap. Speaking of that, Aqua's in season 18, right? So is that also going to be in Stadium because that wasn't a part of the roadmap? So I was wondering, did you miss out on putting Aqua there too?
Okay, so there's a bit of a story behind that one,
Okay.
and just like maybe some like inside baseball. Sometimes, like you're like a lot of times you're moving like really quickly on a dev team
Hmm.
to get information out because like we just launched this like a week and a half ago, right? And we're responding to lots of things internally. I'm writing this director's take blog. We were doing it kind of like late last week and early this week, but all this stuff needs to get localized at the same time. And so there's all these like sort of like deadlines that are typically like days before a player like sees the actual information. So we were trying to like collect enough information on the mode, to where we felt like the roadmap was kind of like close to what we wanted. And there was a moment where we actually had Aqua on that roadmap for like mid-season 18, and we removed him. And we're in this spot where like one of the questions that we've got on the mode is what's more exciting for players to get one of the new heroes in the mode, or is it more exciting for like a hero that's been in the game for like the last 8 years that they might have a ton of affinity for? Is it more exciting for that hero to get into the mode? And so we're kind of like going back and forth on it, and we're watching conversations across socials and stuff like that, to where it's like, I don't know, maybe Aqua comes really early, but at the same time, like maybe it's better to put those resources into one of the heroes that people are like, oh my god, like could you imagine what Tracer could do or something like that in Stadium?
That makes sense. Okay. Because I was wondering, because I'm like, I remember, Aqua's there. We've heard that the newer heroes are going to be in there. So that makes a lot of sense. You bring up like all these old heroes. So have there been heroes in Stadium that you tried to start with at first, and then you're just like, we can't bring that hero in just yet? I'm just curious because, like, there's a lot of heroes out there and you see them, but like obviously a lot of them didn't make it. So, has there been a hero that you tested, like Tracer, for example, where you're like, Tracer's great, but like this isn't going to be ready yet. Like we can't.
That's a great. I don't think so, actually. I
Mhm.
mean, there could have been like some of the Stadium designers maybe did some tests early on that they pulled back on a hero, but I don't know of one where we got pretty far with where we pulled back with them. There were a few where we just purposefully decided to hold off on a little bit.
Mhm.
And like a hero like Tracer is one of those because like it's tough. Like sometimes when you're developing a game mode, like whether it's a giant game mode like this, or even like some of the core game modes in Overwatch, like Flashpoint or something like that, you're building systems and you're building content like at the same time, and they all like influence each other, right? So it's not like the day we started on Stadium where like there's going to be weapon power, ability power, survival power, like, or survival items and then powers, right? That's a sort of thing that we kind of like moved into with the mode, but at the same time we're also creating heroes, and we're also like trying to build upgrades for these heroes as all of this is going on. And so with a hero like Tracer, there's like a lot of possibility space with her where it's like there's so many fun things that you think she can do, but at the same time, like, how do you make like her blinks like more powerful? Like, hey, I'm gonna like go into a blink build. You could start giving her more blinks, or you can start doing things with them. Like if you blink through people, it causes damage and stuff like that. But without the system that we have right now, where there's like the powers that would give her that ability, and then the like ability items that would start upgrading it, we didn't have quite as clear a path on it.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I think that like going forward, now that we've got a pretty decent handle on the system and the way it works, I think that some of those heroes are going to be like really, really fun to get back to.
That's the exciting part. It's the I've heard for years the terminology of like hero fantasy, and I didn't really realize that till recently with like perks and then into like Stadium, where it's like, okay, this is what that means. It's where you take your character and you can go further and further with it, which is really cool. So now, do you think you'll ever add like other things besides ability power, weapon power, things like that are like another stat that can maybe benefit another hero, or are you really content with what you have?
Totally. It's funny. I'm like trying to bring up the roadmap because I can't remember exactly how we specified some of that stuff. That's on there. Fine. So I don't want to like, I don't want to like give up too many things, but like, one of the things that you see on there for like season 19 and beyond is consumables. And here's the tough thing about a roadmap like this is we don't have those implemented yet. Right.
Yeah.
So like, it could be that we do this and we're like, you know what, this system needs to turn into something else. But it's something that we think would be like really exciting for the system. It's like, one, on the design side, it's a bit of a money sink, or a currency sink for this mode, to where people that are doing really well might be able to put more currency into it. But it's also kind of fun to make those decisions of like, am I trying to like go after like long-term power here, or do I really need a short-term burst, for power? So we're talking about systems like that, and then we're talking about some other systems that I don't think I can go into yet that could potentially go into it. The one other thing, and I did talk about this a little bit in the director's take, is that quest system, or what we're probably going to end up calling trials with Stadium, and that's something that would be able to give a hero a power, or I guess we wouldn't call it a power. We're already using that, an upgrade to their hero early in the game that we're hoping like would influence the way that they would push their build. Because one of the worries that I've got for Stadium is that there could be a content problem with it, which means that like as people kind of like played a bunch, they start getting used to what all of the different builds are, and even though it's like there's this very like rich and in-depth moment-to-moment gameplay side of it, the armory side of it might start losing some of its appeal. And so to just introduce a few systems to kind of like change the way you think about putting a build together from match to match is something that we think would be pretty healthy for the game.
Yeah, I do like that, because I find now that sometimes I say it to chat, I'll be like, all right, I'm loading in. All right, I know exactly what I'm going right away in Junker Queen, and I'm jumping around in circles for 45 seconds because I'm waiting there. So like I can see why you add more depth to that, so you have to think more about what you're doing. I love that. People have been asking, because what is Stadium Trials? I know that was on there. I think people were asking about the roadmap and what that is.
Yeah, so Stadium Trial is this thing I was just talking about. It's that quest system to where.
Oh, like, okay, so it's the okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. It would be that, and so like that's another one of the things, like when I talked about we're like putting information together, like as we're making decisions, like the name of our quest feature changed to trials
Ah.
like after we put this like after we had like a locked version of this roadmap that we had to send out to our localization teams. And it's kind of crazy working on a development team, like the number of names you have for even like the heroes in our game. It's kind of crazy, you know, where like like and on the like in our like editor and our tools, you know, like Reinhardt's still called like Juggernaut, you know, and it's just like, or Jug or whatever,
I
because
love
that's
that.
just like what he started out as in like 2014 or something like that. And it's funny too, like I don't know why, like I get kind of stuck on some of those too. So I will still call Farah Mercy sometimes because that was like her original name
Oh wait,
for like
really? I didn't
two
even
weeks.
realize that.
Yeah,
That's
on the team, it was like it was very short lived, but it just kind of just like I don't know, it like a couple of my neurons arrange themselves a certain way and they haven't untangled.
everybody must get so confused when you're talking about Mercy and you're talking about something. Yeah, we got to give Mercy more, boops, and they're like, dude, Aaron, what are you talking about? Aaron, you good? Like, like.
I am not good. No.
I was like, okay, that's awesome. So I'm going like spitball here, but someone asked about like
Oh
the
yeah.
drafts, right? So this is going to be kind of what we think it is, right? You pick a hero, the other team picks a hero. That's basically what you're aiming for. Like you go
Yeah,
kind of.
so that's basically it.
Yep.
Well, oh sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just responding to that. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, so it's going to be it's like it's pretty simple. There's going to be some details in there that we're going to have to work through. Like, it'll probably be some sort of like snake pattern as far as like with the heroes that you're picking from. And I have a feeling like we'll probably give the first tank to go a ban in it. So it's like no one else gets it, but in this version of draft with like the one tank, like the 5v5 version of stadium,
Mm-hmm.
we'll probably need to do something like that in there just because we don't want one tank to pick and then immediately the next tank picks like what will be like the best matchup for them.
Yep.
And so like we're kind of hoping that that's like a nice middle ground of like giving that first person kind of like an advantage and a disadvantage all at the same time to even it out. And then I think there's like one more thing to talk about with drafts, and this kind of goes back and forth with the quests or trials feature. Is we've gone back and forth a few times internally on what would be more important
Yeah.
for the mode. Is it that like we like is there a format problem in Stadium that drafts can fix,
Mm-hmm.
right? And is there is our and it drafts isn't just about format, it also there's some strategy in there and stuff like that too for a team to put together. But like is that more important for it, or is it more important for the team to put a system in that makes that kind of like nudges people to have a bit more like to think about their builds differently and to have a bit more variety from match to match? And so like we've gone back and forth on that like over the past few months a few times. I could see a version of this where those two features actually swap. You know, like
Okay.
it could be that we pull one in earlier, like maybe drafts goes to 18 and trials goes back to 19 or something like that.
Okay,
But
I see what you're saying. So there's wiggle room there if, in case like it's not ready yet. You're willing to kind of flip one of them if capable. That makes sense.
yeah, and it's not even if it's not ready,
Yeah,
it's what's going to be better for players and better for the game mode. We'd like to stay as agile on this as we can.
I get what you're saying because like so if it's more solved by season 18, it might be better to do drafts because that would kind of shake it up a bit, and then trials would be the addition to that after. Also, the chat picked up on this. I didn't pick up on it. People said you said the 5v5 version of Stadium. So does that mean there was ever
Yeah.
a 66 version? Is there a 66 version?
There's not. Like I kind of threw that was like a little manipulative. I threw that out so you'd ask me a question.
Good
But
lead.
yeah, there's not one right now, and I've seen people ask about it online.
Yep.
Right now, we've got some performance problems in Stadium, especially on console.
Mhm.
So I think what we really need to do before we would look at something like that is to like dial in performance as much as we can, because that 6 player on each team is just going to be too much for some of the platforms
Yep.
that we're on. You know. It's funny, the mode actually started as a 4v4 mode, and that's where like the like initial exploration happened with, and part of it was for performance, but a lot of it was for like we just had this worry that it was going to be too crazy, right? There's just going to be too many things going on in the mode, but it's weird. Like you pretty quickly adapt, you know. And I would even think that if we even had a 6v6, players would pretty quickly adapt to all that extra information. It's just something that's not on the table right now.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I figured I'd ask because I saw chat pick up on that one a little bit. So speaking of that, I imagine, I know you've probably mentioned it in AMAs and on Twitter, etc. I imagine it's going to be the same. Like you're getting closer to the console fixes to make it a little bit easier for people, because I know that people really want to play it on console, and I see it all the time. They're like, oh, I have a PS4 and I'm not able to play, and I want to play like soon.
Yeah, so this next Monday, cross your fingers, we're hoping to have a patch or a hotfix that allows us to test a few things on consoles. One of the things that we did, and I don't know if everyone knows this, but because we were getting some performance issues, we made the decision on some of the older platforms to lock your FPS to 30. And what that does is it kind of takes away all these different spikes that you have in the game, so it's a more consistent experience. But the real question is like, how often do those actually happen? And is it worth locking your experience to 30 FPS the entire time? Because what that does is it reduces your input, you know, to 30 FPS too. So like everything can just feel a little bit more laggy that way.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try some experiments where we're turning that off. And just kind of like collect data on it, see what players think about that. And if that is like a net positive, we'd probably leave that on for players. And then we're also doing like just a bunch of work, just performance tuning work. There's a lot that is going on. Like this is a more CPU heavy mode than some of the other modes that we've got, and so on certain platforms that can be more challenging. So we're looking just at like the way a lot of our scripts are run, if there's different things we can do to improve performance in different small ways to just like continually nudge that frame rate higher for people.
That's good. It must be.
I think the first thing they'll see is next Monday.
That's good. So okay, so but hopefully everything goes well with that, and it's got to be interesting because Overwatch is obviously known for being very well optimized. So it must be like a very interesting spot now where it's like, oh, back to square one. Now we have to go back into optimization mode. Where I mean, obviously you're always improving that, but it must be like a very unique like. It's been a bit since you've had to do that for a while, so I think maybe beginning of Overwatch 2?
Yeah, like the game mode, like we're always or the game itself, we're always adding like new features to it and pushing things a bit. So you have like these moments where you either have to like go back and do like a big performance focus, or like, hey, there's a bunch of tech debt on the project and things like that. So it's like we've introduced like some modes like Flashpoint where like the maps are way bigger and they start hitting performance, so you need to go in and start looking at it there. Or even things like Mythic Weapons was like this massive like endeavor across the entire team of like, how do we even just get like the memory freed up in order to be able to do something like that. So like there's a lot of like, we kind of hit a lot of moments like this. But yeah, this one maybe I think is one that we're dealing with a little bit more after it launched than before than I think we would have liked, and so we're trying to respond to it as quickly as we can.
Yeah, well, hopefully it all settles, because I think that people will be happy with that. So that's always good with that one. I just had a question in my head, and I ever do that thing where you have something ready to go and then you just forget a second later and you get in that awkward situation where you're like, what was I gonna say or do? That's where I'm at right now.
You've just described my daily experience, right? The lived experience of a game director. Yes, I get that.
Those meetings must be amazing when you get into that moment. You're like, I'll be real with y'all. I got nothing right now for a second. I was all ready too. I was like, I'm gonna remember something on this one too, and I just completely forgot.
Yeah, it was probably amazing too.
Oh, it was gonna be great. It was gonna be like, oh, this is gonna be a question that people are gonna love or something like that. I have no idea. I'm curious on this one. So you have a lot of data, right? Do you have data on how many people are using first person in comparison to third person?
Oh shoot. We are collecting that. I don't know what the answer is right now. I'm gonna message somebody and see if we can get that a little bit later in this one.
Sounds good. I know it's a deep question, but I was just curious because it's the first time we've ever really had third person in Overwatch, unless you're playing one of the third person heroes. So, you're holding up a Rhine shield. So it's
yeah.
It's I like both, so I'm curious.
Yeah, I kind of like both too, and it's like it's hero by hero.
Hmm.
But and we managed to get the telemetry, and this was like last minute. We thought we weren't going to get telemetry in on first versus third person
Hmm.
until 16.1 or like mid-season 16. It's just the way we refer to it internally. But I think we got it in for launch, and so like we ought to have something there. Sometimes the issue is like you collect the data, but
Yeah.
you don't have a way to like display it and show it to the team. So some of these things we actually have to have like some of our like data like scientists actually go in and like run stuff for us in order to collect it.
Yeah, but
Um,
that makes sense. It makes sense too.
yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully I can get something for
Do
you.
you think? I remember asking you that spotlight. Do you think there's still a world where you eventually go first to third if you hit a button, or is that still?
Gosh, like maybe so. Like there's been some pushback on it, like from the team and from the community. I
Mhm.
think it's this like interesting thing where like you want to keep the game balanced, but it's also kind of fun to push something like this and to kind of like push the envelope a little bit and introduce something that like I haven't really seen before. um so I don't know, like right now we're holding off on doing something like that, but we should at least experiment with it internally. I mean, as long as we're having fun on the game team internally, that's what matters,
Hey,
right?
you know what? It sounds like we need a stadium experimental thing or something like that, like a card to go up one day where you put on that option and see if people how they feel too, because that could be interesting. One of those like quick play
Okay, I
hacks.
got
Or
an answer.
oh, you did? Okay, I'm
Um,
ready.
so I don't have details on this, but it's 62% of players
Hmm.
are in 3P and 38% are in 1P.
Wow. Okay, that's actually. I'm not like I'm not gonna say it's surprising because I had no idea what to expect, but I wonder if that will eventually get to 50-50 or that will start to go away from each other. I'm curious, like in 2 months' time, where is that lay? But see, so that's pretty
Yeah,
good.
and this is like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I you have this tendency of making it sound like I'm gonna keep talking, and I'm done talking. It's a great thing to have.
No, it's weird. Like my or your audio cuts out anytime I say anything at all, and it'll cut out for like several
Oh,
seconds.
wonderful.
So yeah, so I'm just dealing with that. But the one question is like, since that's by player, the question is like how many people are like differentiating it by hero, you know?
Ah,
There's like I think a more detailed analysis that we could do there to like really check it out.
that's really cool. I like that. I'm also glad you're adding the important builds thing and doing it sooner than later because I am a person who forgets my build right away. I will go into the training range. I'm like, chat, we're going to run this build. I get in there and I forget everything immediately. So I'm glad you're adding that because I need that. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, it's actually like it's a pretty cool feature, you know? So it's like one, you'll just be able to do it in the practice range if you want to, you know, like be able to jump in, put something together and save it. But
I like
it's
that.
going to be a little bit more full featured than the example builds that we have. So you'll be able to put more items into it and kind of separate things by like, hey, here's like early, mid, late game sort of
Oh, I
like
love that.
items that you want to put in there.
Yeah, that will be really good because I think more depth of that will be nice because like sometimes you can have a build, but you don't know like why you have this build going into round 5. It's like I don't know. So like you can say this is early, then you can sell it. Can you have it so you can show like steps of selling items too? As in like so like if I'm like hey I'm making a build for rounds 1 through 3, but then at this point I'm gonna sell this because I know it gets better here. Is that gonna be something with that too?
It's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
It's not going to have it to where it's like, hey, like now's the moment to
Yeah,
sell,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's more of like, hey, here's the items you're going to take in the early game. Here's the ones you want like mid, and kind of go that way. This is pretty amazing. I've got like people on the team right now messaging me like additional details.
Hey,
on
hey
a
listen,
lot of these
send it. I'm loving it. So
It's pretty great.
yeah. Oh, they're I. One thing I've loved is like I think I see Dylan in like so many chats so amped up about Stadium, so you can feel that passion every single time. I love it. It's
Oh
so
yeah,
good.
he's 100% in. He's messaging me about first and third
I
person
love that.
right
That's
now.
so good. Um,
It's
no worry,
pretty
I'm gonna keep
amazing.
having questions. Actually, Chad, do you have any questions too? Because this is open ended. I don't have any prepared stuff. I'm not told I can't ask anything, so we can. I mean, well, it's more Stadium esque. Keep in mind, Stadium questions. Obviously, I'm not gonna go into other details, but
I saw Yeah, I saw a matchmaking question in there that
Mhm.
maybe I can jump into
Go for it.
about just like
Absolutely.
why why we're matching up people like that are pretty far apart in the leagues. And this one's like it's a little complicated, but like the way that we are like the way that we designed and engineered the ranked system for Stadium, it's a little different than the regular game. So we still are dividing people up into leagues and like the divisions inside each of those leagues, but for like the first 4 leagues of Stadium, it's a progressive system. So
Yep.
like you are just going to be able to rank up easier, or like your play time is going to account for part of your rank up. It's not just about like your win percentage in there. And it like tapers off more and more like as you get through it. But then like in leagues 5 through 7,
Mm-hmm.
it's really about just like your win-loss record and how well you're doing and how well that the game thinks you are internally. And so what that means though is we really need to separate like your skill from your league, especially for people at some of those lower leagues. And so we have an internal rating for a player that can be pretty different from what their external rating is. And you'll even see this in the normal game, like when we do like some of the rank resets at the normal game, we still need to know what people's like internal MMR is, because depending on when they jump back into the season, you could have some pretty bad matches if we just did it based off of what their rank was.
Yep.
So the short answer is we're always matching like or creating matches
Yeah.
with people as close to each other's skill level as possible, even if like their ranking in Stadium is pretty divergent.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I explain that every single time there's a rank reset. I'm like, no, I'm still going to be playing against the top 500 players. It's an internal hidden MMR. I'm still going to be playing against them. I'm in a different rank right now. So makes sense. One thing that I've wanted with Stadium, is there ever going to be a search bar? So like if I want to go command and shell build, I can type command in, and then it will go to like, it will show me all the things that would be beneficial to those abilities.
Wow. I don't know if we've ever even talked about that.
Oh,
So
damn.
it's a cool idea though.
I think it'd be cool.
Yeah. I think that's cool. Yeah, like that's a cool feature. It's like the cool thing about like developing something like this is you go from like how do you get as many like big features in as possible and do like these big meter moving things, to after launch you start thinking about like what are the quality of life things that you could put in that
Yep.
could potentially make the mode better for a bigger number of people. And so like I think for a little while we'll still be looking at like, hey, what are the issues we can solve? What are some of the things to like make the mode better? But then we will definitely start getting into quality of life stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I just think that'd be really cool. It just makes it so much easier for searching for stuff. Sometimes I feel like I don't, like, even though I've been playing it like nonstop, I don't even recognize half the icons. Still, I look at it, I go, that's gonna be something. So that'd be really cool to have that search option on that one. Chat's asking the questions now. Let's see what else we got here, because
There was an ADS question.
Oh, what question? ADS, you said?
Yeah, there was a question on ADS, just whether we're going to improve it at all, and we are. So I think it'll be in 17.
Okay.
We ought to have something that makes it so it's no longer that pop. It's like a little weird right now to get that pop into ADS, and so we're going to do something where we like kind of like do that smooth interpolation in and out of like the standard over the shoulder camera into the ADS camera.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, because I have a tendency when I'm playing a hero with a scope where I'll unzoom, or I'll zoom in and I'm looking like 40 degrees away from where I was at a wall, and I'm like, okay, because like if you have the time in like perfectly, you just look somewhere else.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. That's really good then. I like that you're making those changes too. I'm trying to see Chad is just going off with a bunch of questions here. So this is, I don't know if we can ask that question about the third person for that. That's a different one. That we're doing Stadium questions right now. That will be a question that people will ask though about normal modes with third person, but.
There was a question about like whether there's any like issues with role queuing, because it like matchmaking and queue times it's something we've been hearing actually a lot about from players, and so like I could try to like wrap all of it into one answer. But as far as like role queues, what's really interesting about Stadium is that support is the most popular role in Stadium by a pretty decent margin. And so support players now are having the longest queue times in Stadium, and then DPS and tank players are roughly equal in having like the fastest queue
Oh,
times in
okay.
Stadium. And the tough thing about it is at like the really high levels, like we're seeing some pretty long queue times, and I can talk to that. But at the really high levels, support's even more popular. And so it's exacerbating the problem that we've got right there. For most of the population, it's not a big deal, but as you start getting up into like the really high ranks, it can start becoming a problem.
Okay.
And so we are seeing some pretty long queue times for like the top players. The average queue time I think is under 2 minutes for most players in Stadium.
Yep.
But like at the ends it gets high, and like one of the reasons why is just there's a little bit of a role imbalance. But the other side is that because the mode is so new, a lot of the players that, like, let's say maybe like a streamer
Yeah.
that are playing a ton, they're like really pushing out ahead of a lot of the rest of the population. And so they're almost creating like this little island of like MMR that it's hard to find it's hard to find players with. So we are talking about doing a bunch of things. We think that there's like a lot of tuning that we can do to help get some of those like queue times down. We're also talking about like doing an unranked version of Stadium, and there's some nice things that we can get with that. Like I think players' first instinct is like, oh, if you're gonna have two queues, now queue times are gonna be even longer. But the nice thing is we'd be able to like have a different set of rules as far as matchmaking goes in the unranked version, to where we could start speeding that up. And then we could do specific things in the ranked version, like we could put grouping restrictions into the ranked version and things like that. And some of those things are like causing some big issues on like the matchmaking times, especially for like the high ranked players. And so we're kind of talking about doing a lot of stuff like that right now, but we definitely think we can get queue times down at those extreme ends.
Yep.
And we think still that there's enough matches being made that we'd be able to split those queues and maintain pretty healthy queue times.
It will be interesting because I know a lot of people obviously want to play it, but sometimes you add the rank and the comp to it, or people don't have time. So it's I think it's important to get that mode out. Obviously, having it be right, but I like that. Now I have to ask this question because this person has been the most spam heavy I've ever seen, and I'll look at some of these questions that Megan's put here too. If you ever have builders where you have a new type of deployable, I had to do it. They spammed it like 80 times, timed themselves out 3 times doing. I had to do it.
Wow, squeaky wheel here. That's a great question. So I don't know if we've started on one of the builders yet, but that would be pretty fun to do something like that, to have a new deployable for them. It's actually like a pretty awesome idea. It gets into like one of the things that we want to do with Stadium. Like you talked about hero fantasy earlier, right? Where it's just like, it's just fun to think about what some of the other heroes, or what some of our heroes could do, like our very first intro cinematic for Overwatch is like back when we announced in 2014, like Reaper shot these like smoke grenades,
Yep. Oh.
and it's like, it's not like he had him on his belt, it didn't look
Yeah.
like it was something he shouldn't be able to do. And it's like, we have to pick a very small set of what players can do for the core game. It's just like the way that a hero shooter works and the mechanics work in it. But they are able to do a lot more than that. So this answer is kind of going long for
That's fine.
What?
That's fine. I'm a yapper. You can talk all day long about all this stuff. I'm vibing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm a yapper and I'm a rambler, kind of. I'll go
Same.
off on tangents. But like, yeah, I think it would be, in the end, that would be super fun to do that, because like some of the items or powers that actually transform what a hero does, and it makes you think about playing them differently, I think are some of the funnest ones to put in the game mode.
I agree. I would still love, like, I mean, this is like a random thought. Like, imagine having Devo to where I could just like eat an ultimate and then reuse it as like a power. How fun would that be? Like, things like that just sounds so good. Like, you just
That's awesome.
So we have a few questions here too, and I'm just gonna go with. Someone asked about like Stadium replay system. Are you like gonna try to improve that? Are you happy with it? Like, I know it's like 27 replay codes per game now, so it's like,
yeah, it's something that we're working on,
yep.
and it was one of those things that kind of like came in last minute. Like we had it on like our like stretch list of like stadium features, and so we're going to be doing some improvements to it over time.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I personally, as a streamer, I would love one day if replay codes never get wiped. What is like the technical part behind that as to why they get wiped? I know it's random,
so there's
but
like those all get saved out in like a very specific format. And then as you start making changes to the game, it like invalidates some of that data because things are just different, and like sometimes you'll do like pretty big overhauls in the engine. And so like we started working on this. This is a long time ago. This is before even Overwatch even shipped, when we're talking about it. And like technically you would have to go back and like fix up everybody's replays in order to be able to do that. And then you would have to like, you'd have to have these series of like, okay, we're like fixing it not just for the last patch, but like 40 patches ago, as you kind of have this cascading set of like fixes that'll happen. And it was just like, we just deemed it to be too big of like one of those ongoing like costs to the project that it just wasn't worth it.
I get it. I was just curious. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those.
Get it.
Yeah. I was just curious. I mean, obviously, like it just always is a question on that one. So somebody asked earlier, you were talking about like players not playing their roles. Is there other ways you can incentivize people to play roles, or has it kind of hit the point where like people aren't going to tank a lot because it's tank? Is it like, is there more? Yeah, you know what I mean on that.
Yeah, totally. I think that there's things that we can do. I had like a long time ago, it felt like the development team was maybe like a little bit more entrenched on like, hey, here's just how many people play tank. Here's how many people play support. But after Overwatch 2 shipped, there was like a lot of there was a lot of critical feedback about the support role.
Yeah.
And it was definitely like not that popular. And we put a lot of effort into making the support heroes more fun to play and have more impact. And now they're just as popular as damage is in the core game, right? So there's definitely things that we can do to tweak it. I think that like it's interesting when you think about like why people play Stadium. You might feel like you can transform support heroes more than some of the other ones because you're like, hey, do I want to be a total healer or do I want to be total DPS? They have like some of them have like two very distinct styles of builds that they can go after, and that's like really exciting, I think, for players to do. So it might just be that like, and I'm just thinking out loud right now.
Yeah.
This is like,
no worries.
This isn't something that we've talked about a lot. But it might just be that they have like almost like a leg up in this style of game mode.
Yep.
And we'll have to find ways of like having other people catch up to them. But that's like a good question. It's something for us to talk about.
Okay, I like that. Someone had a really interesting question too. They said, do you intend to change abilities as time passes to keep things fresh with older heroes as the new ones come out? Getting rid of some of the current abilities, new ones, like different takes on the hero? And
yeah. Definitely. That's what's okay. So one of the funnest things about Stadium, or like, and hopefully it'll be one of the most exciting things for players, is that there's actually a lot of knobs that we get to turn in this game mode. There's a lot more than we have just in like standard, like the core quick play and competitive modes of Overwatch. It's actually one of the reasons why we even introduced perks. There's going to be more things that we can change season to season. So you're going to see some of that same change that we do with perks inside of Stadium. So like, for instance, we're going to be removing a fair amount of the just the items in season 17 and replacing them with other items. And it's just going to like cause people to like think about their heroes differently. And when I say fair amount, I don't mean like a
it's all gone, new ability.
So we'll be doing that, and then like for the time being, I think on the powers side, we're going to be a little bit more selective with when we pull powers out and put new ones back in.
Yep.
But it's part of the plan is to do something like that, especially for powers that we have issues with. The other side of Stadium 2 is it's like um, anytime we had a new hero, at least with our internal testing,
Yeah.
it kind of shakes up the whole game. So in just a couple weeks, Freya is going to jump into Stadium, and then at the start of season 17, we'll have 3 new heroes in there. So you just kind of like either you're playing one or you're playing against them, and everything feels a bit different because you're trying to figure out like what are all these things this hero is capable of, and how are they going to like affect this match long term. So I think there's going to be like, besides those other systems we're talking about, like trials and draft and stuff like that, we do think that there's at least for like the short term, there's like a content cadence that we can like put into Stadium or release into it that'll keep the game feeling the game mode feeling pretty fresh.
Yeah, that's what I like about Stadium too. As someone who's played Overwatch for about to be, which is crazy to think about because I didn't play much of the beta, 9 years. Because like next year's your 10-year. I just realized you're going a 10-year. I mean, obviously longer for you, but like it's crazy to think about. But I love that when you're refreshing things because it just feels so different than what I'm used to, but also in the game that I love, and that's what I love about Stadium. It almost feels like a different game in Overwatch, which is great, and I love that. Someone wants to know if you can ever queue from multiple modes at once. As in, like,
oh god,
comp or Stadium.
It's something that we talk about internally. It's another one of those quality of life features where it would be nice to have something like that. Anytime we get into like different types of queuing and stuff like that, things get like really complicated really fast, and sometimes they turn into big amounts of work. And so like we're always kind of just like things like that we're putting up against like other core game features where sometimes it's just hard to like justify the work of like doing something like that, or doing like a feature that goes into the game that is like really up front and center.
That makes sense. Yeah, it was a good question. I like the idea of that, like just being able to do that in the future. You know, you mentioned that we have the 3 heroes coming out next season. Can you give me one ability or power that's different than what we're used to from those heroes? Just one. You don't have to. You can choose who it is.
Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna get maybe like one of the better ones from the team.
I'm excited.
And maybe we come back to that when we get an answer.
That sounds good. We have more. I mean, endorsement system's not in Stadium. Plan on being in there eventually?
Sorry, deciding. Yes. I can't remember exactly when that's going in, but it's on the schedule for us, and it was one of those things where it's like
we had it on
like that stretch list also, for Stadium stuff, and it kind of like fell off the end of it.
That makes sense.
It's weird. Like there's the weirdest part about game development sometimes is some things are like so much easier to do. Like when you go and talk to the engineering team, they're like, oh yeah, that's like easy, and you'd expect it to be really hard.
Yep.
And then every once in a while there's these things where and every game engine's going to do it differently. There's one of these things where you're like, hey, can you just like flip the switch and turn this on? And they're like, dude, that's like so much work to do it. There's that. And then look at it. My tech director is messaging me right now. Hopefully I'm not getting into trouble right now with this answer.
I'm loving it.
But then so there's like that, like with endorsements. And then there's also like funny enough, like leaderboards. Leaderboards are like really hard for us to move from one game mode to another. There's like a ton of bespoke things that we need to do to it every time.
Oh damn.
And so like that's why there's not a top 500 for Stadium right now, and that's one of the reasons why. Is it's like you wouldn't think that would be a ton of work, but it is a ton of work with the way that our engine is put together.
So there will be one eventually then for top 500. Is what is.
Maybe.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm having fun regardless. Actually, speaking of ranked with Stadium, drives, is that ever a possibility too? Because I know drives just got introduced to like core. Is that going to be a Stadium thing eventually too, or?
Yeah, it's totally a possibility. We'd like to do that.
Okay, that's cool to know because I know people. I've seen a lot. I mean, I've known people like that have not played much Overwatch 2 over the past couple of years who love Stadium. So I know they would love the option for drives because now Stadium's a game they can play, which is really cool. So. That's something that's been really cool too. I've had a few people who were like, they didn't quite, enjoy core as much, but they love Stadium. I've heard such good things. I love the game mode, so I'm being a little bit of a.
I love that.
Yeah.
I do too.
It's so good.
It's so fun to play.
Yep. Okay, here's one.
Okay, what else you got?
I mean, we have Megan's popping off here too, getting some questions from it. So, with Stadium with just best of 5 with powers ever tried. And how did you settle on best of 7? Because I know initially it was 4v4, different stuff, all that. Now, was it always best of 7, or was there different variations of that?
This is like a very opportune time to ask that question, actually.
Perfect.
Because we actually did some play tests of a best of five experiment just this week.
Oh.
Um, and I could go into a little bit of the history of that. Like originally, we wanted there to be way more than 7 rounds in the game mode, because we thought that you needed a certain amount of like sort of like visits to the shop to really feel yourself growing in power and to have enough strategy in the armory phase. Um, and so when we first started with Stadium, a lot of our PvP rounds were just team deathmatch. And the reason why we did it that way is because we just wanted to have really short PvP rounds so that we could get more rounds in the game mode. But like team deathmatch, there's like an audience for it in Overwatch, but it's not our main audience, and it's just not as satisfying, I think, for most people to play that than it is to play our core game modes.
Mhm.
And so we did this shift where we started using like the core game modes, and those just need to be longer. You know, like you want to have the time to develop multiple ults sometimes in these modes. And so as those PvP rounds got longer, we really needed to cut down on the actual number of rounds in the game mode without it going into like an hour-long match time or something like that. So there was like this really big push and pull right there. And we felt like 7 was that sweet spot. I still do feel like 7 is that sweet spot for like the amount of time a match can take while still feeling like you've got enough of a chance to like put a build together and still lose a round or two and come back from that. But at the same time, we have gotten feedback from people that like sometimes the game mode can feel like it's kind of long. And we have been talking about doing an unranked mode for it. And so we think that like there is a possibility that we do this unranked mode and we actually differentiate it more from the standard game mode by shortening the length of that match and doing like a 5v5 version of it. We're kind of like just at the start of that. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I can't promise that, but um it still feels like Stadium, still feels like you're putting like a real build together and stuff like that, and you're able to do it in a faster amount of time. So like you probably have to ask me in a few weeks
I'll make sure to.
whether that's coming, but something like that might be coming soon.
That's cool. I mean, I'm glad that people have that same feel because that's the most important part. If it feels like Stadium does now, even if it's a little bit shorter, that will be the most important part, which is really cool. Somebody has a question asking if there'll ever be a time to. So now that you're doing all these like being able to like save builds and stuff, do you think there's a way where at the end of a game, if you like another person's build, you can save that right away? So like I can be like, oh, I really like this Cassidy's build. Let me go save that.
Ooh. I don't think that's going into this version of the build saver. The way we're going to do it is you'll be able to share builds the same way you share like custom game or workshop codes, you know. So there's just going to be a code for it, and you'll just be able to use those to kind of like to kind of do it. But I don't think we're going to have like that code, you know, like up for like some of the other heroes in the match.
Okay.
Although I am being told in some of my DMs right now that we would like to do something like that long term. It's not on the schedule yet, but they'd like to be able to do it.
I love that the Stadium
I
team.
love that they're watching this.
Oh, yeah.
And like advising me.
We should have just brought them on. It would have been great. We'd have the whole team on here. You know. That's
yeah,
awesome.
You're really talking to like 10 or 15 people right now.
That's like the Reddit AMA where it had like 100 people on there. I got to watch out for what's his name, Larry Pickle, my arch nemesis.
Oh. God,
That's
he's so good.
That's my arch nemesis. That's the one at Spotlight. I couldn't get past Larry Pickle.
Yeah, Larry's good. Yeah.
How are the stomp rates in Stadium comparable to comp? Someone asked that question. Like, do you see a lot of stomps, like quick games, mercy rules?
Yeah, there's actually a decent amount of them, and I think it's probably a little bit higher than we want it to be. There's a pretty decent amount of matches that are 3-0 and 4-0 matches.
Mm-hmm.
The weird thing about Overwatch is it's a game of momentum sometimes, even in the core mode. So the weird thing is like let's say in Control,
Yep.
if you win the first round of Control, you have a pretty high chance of winning the second one.
Yeah.
You shouldn't. All the ults are reset. The matchmaking is typically putting together like really good teams there, but it just kind of happens. There's like this psychological thing that's happening in some of these modes. And then with Stadium, you actually are getting a little bit of an advantage sometimes when you a lot of the time when you win a round, and so it can snowball a little bit. So we are getting that. One of the things we're talking about doing is actually removing that currency differential in the mercy rule. It's kind of confusing to players, and what we see is like most of the time, if you lose your first 3 rounds, you're gonna lose the match. You know, it's like you have a pretty small chance of coming back from something like that. So we think we would just end it right there. I mean, it'll up the number of 3-0s that we have in the game, but we think it's probably worth it for players. And then we'll probably start looking at some tuning things and stuff like that to maybe let that team that's behind have a better chance. This is one of those things where like we want to be moving as quick as we can for players right now. We want to be responding to feedback and doing things. That's why you're seeing like a lot of these patches coming in, a lot of a talk like this, the director's takes we're doing. But sometimes you do need to wait a little bit on some stats before you start making like big changes with the mode. So we're like the pedals to the metal on this one, but like I actually don't know how to end that analogy, but like we don't want to go like too fast.
That's a nice way of telling me to stop complaining about D.Va in Stadium. I get it, Aaron. I know where you're alluding to. I got you. Listen, I get it. Okay. Actually, now that I'm curious because you have the data, who has the lowest win rate in Stadium on PC? I'm only curious for that, and then we can do console too. I'm just curious.
So that one is very dependent on whether it's controller. Or mouse and keyboard, and then what rank you're looking at. Yeah. But I'm assuming you're kind of looking for like masters on keyboard, right?
Either way's fine because I've heard feedback on both on D.Va, so I'm just curious now.
So if it's just mouse and keyboard and you're talking about tank, it's D.Va.
Okay.
But it's not by a lot. She's still at like 46% win rate, you know. So it's like it's still basically, you know, a coin flip.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As to whether or not.
Where's Ryan at then with that? I'm just curious on like the actual percentage. I know you at the top.
Masters plus mouse and keyboard, he's at like 52%.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, it's not like a huge one, I guess. I'm surprised. Then
it's pretty tight for most of the heroes in here.
Yep.
Except for D.Va and high ranks on console. She is like way up there.
My build got nerfed, the baby D.Va one. It was it was running wild, I know. Oh man. Megan wants to make sure you're good or not because you hit the 1 hour mark, so she doesn't know your schedule.
I'm good. No, I can keep going.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, that's on you. You can, whenever you're like, you know what, I've had enough of this or whatever, you can tell us that you got to do something or pretend to be busy. You know, it's fine. I got that. Yeah,
I can probably go like another 10 minutes.
That works. Okay. Well, we'll try to get some more questions during that. What's the most picked hero? Like the most, like you see the most of.
So where I have a bunch of boards up. Oh, if we're just talking about like just average across all platforms and across all ranks, it's 76.
I'm not surprised by that. Yeah.
Yeah, right. He's like one of the most picked heroes just in the regular game. You know, I think people just like playing him and also like getting attack visor every 0.5 seconds or
Yeah. It's
pretty good.
Helix rocket the wall, aimbot. It's great. I love it. So somebody had a good question, and Megan found this one too. It's like, so if you ever make a change to a hero right now in like the 5v5 base or like, core, we'll call it core, will that also change how that hero is affected in Stadium? So like the base level of a hero.
Yeah. So far, that's the plan.
Okay.
As we make balance changes to the regular heroes, it goes into Stadium. I don't think like it doesn't mean that we couldn't ever change that philosophy, but it would be so much work to try to like upkeep like 2 totally different sets of balance across both modes. That would be a lot for the team. The one thing that will be interesting is like, and it doesn't look like we're gonna have to do this for a bit, but like the first time the core hero team does a rework on a hero, that's really gonna have a big impact on that hero in Stadium. It could mean that we have to rip half or all of their powers out and redo them.
See, I hear a rework hero, now I'm wondering what heroes are eventually going to be reworked. That's kind of...
There's a few on the list.
That's good. Wait, you don't have to say the list, because I remember last time that happened, it was like, when is this rework? What was it, Roadhog and Sombra at the time? It was like, where is it? So
right? Yeah. You know, it does bring something up, though, because like like Stadium was obviously like a really big endeavor for the team. We're putting a ton of work into it, and we're talking about it a lot right now because we just want to give it the best chance it's got.
Mhm.
But I just don't want players to think that we've forgotten about the core game. You know, like we did release a new hero this season.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Freya,
did,
yeah, I know. Like,
yeah, we did release hero bands. There's a lot coming to the core game in the next couple of months too. We've got like a one of the seasons coming up is a banger for it. So it's like,
mhm.
I don't know, like yeah, we're not all just focusing on Stadium right now. We really love normal Overwatch. When you think about it, like for Stadium to be at like 40% of play hours, that means the majority of our players aren't playing it, you know?
Yep.
So there's still a bunch of players playing other parts of the game.
Which is awesome. I get that vibe. I imagine it will kind of get to a point where like the percentages will be, if it sounds like if it stays the way it is, it could be pretty even actually, which will be interesting if it does, because then you have like these two really cool things in game. Someone asked, there was a couple questions I saw. One of them was, what was the reason you decided the heroes that you did for Stadium? Like, why these heroes as your lead-off heroes? Because obviously, like, you know, people see the divas, you know, versus Zarya or Diva versus Mei, etc. So like, it's different. I keep saying Diva, you know what's going to happen. It's like if you're on an interview with Flats, you're going to hear Reinhardt 100 times. So, you know, with Diva and Zarya and all that, like.
Yep. We just asked Flats and he sent in a list of 17
See,
heroes.
I told everybody. That's what they do. See, even Aaron knows.
That was it. You know,
that's it.
There was like a bunch of reasoning that went into it. The number one thing that we looked at was just like, what do we think is just going to be a fun one to build heroes for, or one that we think like we had a lot of like opportunity space on the hero to build lots of like different powers and items for them. Another one is also just like the popularity of heroes. So it's like you see 76 is picked a ton. 76 is one of the most played heroes in Overwatch. Ana is one of the most played heroes in Overwatch. So is Ryan at times. And so it's like we definitely wanted to pick heroes where we thought it would give the mode the best chance, knowing that we wouldn't have all of the heroes.
Okay,
launch,
that makes sense.
you
So
know?
it's a lot of popular, yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of sucks because there's like, it does mean that there's all these players out there that they're like, hey, you know, like when's ball going in or something like that, and because it's like the hero that they play and they just want to see that hero there. But and we have like, our intention is to like always be adding new heroes to Stadium and get to that point where we've got all of them in there. It's just going to take a little while. And I've seen a lot of different posts and a lot of talk about how like people just aren't playing it because their hero's not there.
Yep.
You know, and like that totally makes sense, right? Like that's like what for some people the reason why they play Overwatch is because of either one or a really small set of heroes that they get to play. That's like kind of like one of the hallmarks of a hero shooter. So like we're working as fast as we can to get as many in, you know, but those are like kind of two of the bigger reasons why we picked the heroes we did.
Yeah. I've said I'd rather you get the heroes right with builds and powers rather than just trying to force like 10 heroes next season just to get them in there, but they're all kind of like, you know, not many powers or abilities and all that. Someone actually asked a question about that. I imagine you do have this data, but like, do you know the individual pick rates for like what powers absolutely dominate right now? Sorry,
yeah,
and which ones
so
don't work?
We have data on pick rates for powers, and then we've got data on even like win rates for powers. But like there are some that are just like kind of obvious that they're on there. You know, like Juno getting a second pulsar torpedo. That's like kind of like tied with as like the top picked power with the 76 tac visor one. You know, so those are both. It's like 70-something% of players are picking those in their builds, you know? And the interesting thing about that is it's like what we do with perks and like the way we've been operating with perks for the core game is a lot of the changes we make to them are based off of pick rates, almost more than the balance rates on them. Because one of the things we want is for players to be able to look at a choice of 2 perks or a choice of like 12 different powers and actually feel like it can be a hard decision sometimes. Like either or like say like, hey, like a bunch of these look good, I want them, or like, hey, this situation calls for this particular one, and to where it's not always like the right answer all of the time for whether it's a power or a perk or an item.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm always curious on that one. It's interesting. I like that you do it based off of like pick rate because even if something's super strong and no one's using it, like it's never going to be used anyway. So it's kind of like you're either forced to nerf the other perk and make it. So I like that it goes that way, or just with powers in general. There was a question I saw. Also, overall goals to get every hero in there eventually over time, like that you're going to eventually get every hero in there once you know that's years down the road, but for Stadium.
Sorry, that last part cut out. So what was the
No
question?
worries. So for Stadium, you plan on eventually getting every hero in there.
Yeah,
like that's the
definitely.
Okay,
We do.
Yeah.
I did get some word back also on some of the powers for season 17.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe maybe I'll give 2.
Okay,
instead
2.
of
Ooh.
just 1, because some of these are pretty amazing. So with Sigma, you can get a mini experimental barrier that orbits around you.
It's like a shield, or like a
Yeah, just like his normal big one, you get a small version of that, and it's just constantly orbiting around you, and all your barrier powers kind of go into that one too, or all the items you get, and it's like it sounds kind of random, like, oh, I hope it's blocking right now, but you actually start using it, and you start orienting yourself to that little barrier as it's moving around you, and like you're almost using it as like this little mini like moving piece of cover. It's super fun to have it. We've even got some like, well, I won't go into the rest of it, some of the things that synergize with it, but it's like it's a pretty fun power.
It sounds awesome too, because like my concern with Sigma is like it right now with the way the maps are, it's very brawl heavy. So like Sigma, if you have to have a static shield sometimes, that sounds like you can have more aggressive Sigma and have some fun with it. So everybody knows all my builds are someone call it the Unk build. But basically, I just go for the builds where you don't have to aim, you don't have to do anything. So I love the idea of hearing a shield build I can kind of build off of. So
yeah,
I have a good time with it. It's a really fun time. I love that.
Okay, then the other one, I'm not going to describe it. I'll just say Zenyatta Flying Kick.
Zenyatta Flying Kick.
Yeah, Flying Kick. Yeah.
Is it kind of like what it used to be in like the April Fool's mode, or are we thinking even like?
I'm just gonna like leave it right there.
Okay, that's fine. I like that. Also, only concern I have with Zen, by the way, I gotta add this here: Discord Orb. I hope it doesn't shift too much with everything. I know there's already damage boosts and stuff, but I hear Zen, I hear Discord Orb. So,
right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's gonna be like the Moira multi-ball. You're just gonna Discord.
Oh, I would love that.
The map.
Yeah, one-shot people immediately. I love that. I cannot believe we've been talking for an hour and 11 minutes now.
I love talking to you.
Yeah, I know, it's great. This happened last time. Don't worry, I'm not going to hit you with some random question at the end, and when I say it's a softball and it's like some random hard question. This time, you're good on that one.
What was it last time? What did you throw on me? What?
I don't know. That was the one about the battle pass thing, and then it was a random one. Oh no, then I asked you about heroes or like increasing hero cadence or something. That was a wild day. That Spotlight was awesome, by the way. I had a blast. So also, I love how Stadium was from Spotlight to now. That was a huge improvement on how it felt then to now. It was great.
God, the team went nuts with this thing, and like they're all like their like morale is so high right now because they just kind of like see the player response from it, and that's just like that's the thing that like really fuels a game development team, is to see people excited for what you're playing, because it's like we're all like crafts people and just kind of like passionate about like what we're creating, and when other people say they love it, that's like that's everything to us.
I love that. So I guess that because I know you said 10 minutes, so we're over that part, and I'll be the one to make it so you can kind of do whatever. I guess I'll let you decide here. What is something you want to talk about? Anything with Overwatch that is going to make Megan go, what is he going to say?
Oh, wow. I just get like a soapbox right here. I think that like what I would love players to like take from like just like this release, and even the release in season 15, is that the team has like I think we've really taken to heart some of the feedback from our players, and we would like to be doing like bigger, more monumental things in the game, and just not be as conservative or as careful as we were in the past, So it's like with things like Stadium and perks, I think that these are big things for the game, but that's not the end of our ambition or the end of the types of things that we want to do. And I think that there's just going to be a lot to look forward to, not
Okay.
just with what's coming this season, what's coming to Stadium, but what's coming in the next few seasons to Overwatch.
Okay. And so you're saying that even in a year's time, it's going to be just really just Overwatch. It's gonna be fun.
Next year is going to be bonkers.
Ah, there you go.
Gonna...
That's a good way to end it. Just next year is going to be bonkers. I love that. It's a good quote. If that ever goes anywhere, you know what? We're good. I'll leave it at that. That way, the community team's like, no, Aaron, you stop right there. Okay? You stop right there.
I'm done.
Yeah, that's it. Aaron, thank you a ton for being on here. I will let you do your thing. We've been going for an hour and 15 now. It's always awesome talking to you. And truthfully, I love when we have more of the impromptu, just talk about whatever type of conversations. These are the best. So thank you for doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Bye, Aaron.
Bye.